Welcome into Your Best Bets. We have a very special episode tonight. I have him on Zoom and I have him on the podcast as well. Five-time Fort Wayne City Golf champion, 2003 Indiana PGA Open. Is that our PGA champion? Is that right?
PGA champ, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
All of it sounds good. It's cool.
Yeah,
You can keep going.
Champions Tour member, Mr. Scott Pieri.
I was. I don't want to pretend I am right now, but I was. I'm going to be again. I'm gonna make that happen, Phil.
Yeah. Okay. If we want to be fair, you had status 19. Is that right?
19. I did. Yep. I sure did.
All right. So Scott Pieri, how we doing? Scott, doing well?
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me, dude. This is I was looking forward to this all day. To have a little chat with you about all kinds of stuff. I can't wait.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Generally speaking, when we have our golf show, we talk about golf a little bit, we talk about current events, and we kind of talk about some of the betting perspective as well. Tonight, I want to talk about kind of your career, trace what that's looked like.
Okay.
You've been playing competitive golf for, over 30 years.
Long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
So there's a lot to hit on, and I kind of want to get your stance on some of the bigger golf topics and just kind of your opinion on some other things. So
Sure.
I kind of want to start with 2021. What does your schedule look like for this season?
Yeah. You know what? It's obviously 2020 was a challenge. 2021 is what really happened was, 2019, I came off 2019. I was injured at the time. Unfortunately, we can talk about that a little bit. So I wasn't feeling very good. I literally 6 weeks before Q school to going into 2020, I couldn't get out of bed. I had an SI joint that was just so bad in my lower right back. It was the first really big injury I've ever had. And I somehow managed to get to Q school, but I didn't get to the finals. So that's where my status is. There's none right now, but we can get that back and I can explain that too a little bit. But in 2020, we had this nice schedule put together. I've got a great sponsor, FAK Logistics. I'd love to talk about Alex a little bit, Alex Haggard. But so I played in three qualifiers this last year, and that was it because the Champions Tour got decimated in the schedule. Right. Everybody did, but we really did too, probably more than anybody. So coming out this season, it looks like a normal schedule. They've moved one event to the fall, which is a Southern California event that I haven't gone to just because it's very expensive. It's a little tough logistically to get there. So I'm going to start the year in Tucson, it normally starts in South Florida. We're going to start in Arizona. Again, a little bit of a change. And I fly out there on the 15th of February. And then in early April, I'll be in South Florida. And then after that, it's Atlanta, which is the place that's very dear to me because we've got great friends there. And that was my first Champions Tour event I ever Mondayed into was Atlanta. So I'll be there. And then after that, it's a little bit sketchy, maybe because they kind of shifted some things. But if you can get inside the top 100 on the money list early in the season, that'll get you into the senior PGA. Have a good senior PGA. It might get you into the senior players. And then I'll have the US Open, and then the fall gets kind of busy. So it's a full year.
That's what I was going to ask you. I know with the PGA Tour, if you have some success early on in the season, you might get some sort of conditional status. Is there something similar with the Champions Tour?
Well, the way it works out there is that, the open qualifying and the Monday qualifying is very different now than like when I was a young man trying to play some. They have what are called pre-qualifiers now. So if you have no status, you have to go through a pre-qualifier, which is usually on a Friday before the Monday qualifier. And those fields are always bigger than the Monday qualifiers on the Champions Tour. A typical Monday qualifier field is about 40 players. Is a little bit, Paul Stankowski, Peter Leonard, I can go on and on. Okay. There's a bunch of sticks on the Monday, but the pre-qualifier is usually 60 players, maybe 70 players, and there's 5 spots there. So the way it works now is if I can get myself through a pre, which I'm planning on, and get into a Monday, and then Monday into the event, I lose the pre. I don't have to pre anymore, which basically gives me the same status I had back in 19, which is being able to go straight to Monday qualifying. So the key is really to get through a pre, get through a Monday early, get yourself in an event. The pre goes away and we're just sort of back to doing what we've been doing. So I'm cool with that. So
not only is Monday qualifying extremely difficult, and maybe you can describe that, but you got to pre-qualify into the Monday.
Yeah. The pre's are tough too. I don't want this to sound wrong, and I don't want to sound overconfident or anything, but in a pre-qualifier, you can kind of see the 30 guys that are probably the 5 spots are going to probably come from, unless
Right.
somebody really plays good. I mean, certainly
Right.
that can happen, and it's neat to see guys do that.
Right.
But you pretty much have an idea who's going to probably be close. So,
That's a
so
Brooks Koepka take.
a little bit. I don't mean that in
No, I
a
understand.
arrogant
Yeah.
way, but you can
Yeah.
kind of see there's a lot of locals. There's a lot of guys that are trying, hey, we're going to throw our money in and we're going to give it a shot. And that's always cool to see. And it's neat meeting those guys. And I enjoy those guys, but you can kind of see who's in there and you're like, yeah, you know, it looks like it might take a couple under or 3 under. That usually gets you into a Monday. It's not terribly difficult. From that standpoint, it's just, you got to go do it. So the Mondays are a treat, man. They're you get to play with some boys. I play with, you know, Tommy Tolles and, you know, Robert Gomez and I'm missing all kinds of guys. I think I played with Peter Launer. There's just a bunch of those guys because there's only 78 guys in a field. So if you look at a PGA Tour field, a big field for PGA Tour is 156. So it's half a field. The smaller fields are 144. So it's just barely over half. The spots are they're just tough to come by, man. It's just difficult. And then you got guys coming off who have status based on their PGA Tour careers, and then they get in, and now those guys that were in are now having a Monday as well. Now they back up. Now the fields it's not going to get any easier, Phil. Let me tell you that it's not going to get any easier. But here's what I would say, just to wrap this up, is it's all about numbers. If you can go shoot 5 under in a Monday qualifier, you're gonna probably get in the event. A lot of times 4 will get it. Occasionally 3 will. So 4 is sort of the magic number, but beyond 4 is let you know you probably got a good chance to get in. So it's a numbers game, man.
Yeah. So what have you been working on this off season? Obviously, living where we live, I'm sure it's tough to get work in, but you know, tell us about what your off season normally looks like in a cold climate like ours.
Sure. So this year was a little bit different. Again, referring back to kind of 19, I came off 19 with an injury that I've never experienced before. I did have a cyst in my wrist that we discovered right when I turned 50, and I had to have some surgery to remove that, but it wasn't. It was a growth, right? It wasn't an injury. But for whatever reason, in 2019, as the year went on, I just got worse and worse and worse. And you just play through it. It's just, there's no other way to do it. You know, you just have to play through it. So when I got to the end of the season, I was really hurting. So Dr. Jason Russell at OPS is the guy who kind of pieced me back together. We figured out that not only did I have an SI joint problem, which is where your hip and your pelvis come together on my right side, it was also due to some hip flexor issues as well. So I started doing some rehab with him, and that really helped. Holly has encouraged me to start doing yoga, which I started doing just recently, very faithfully, and I feel really good. But 2020 gave me a chance, even though it was a crappy year with COVID, it gave me a chance to really get healthy. And get better. So I feel, so from that, I'm very thankful for that in 20, but I started playing again in the fall, really, because I started feeling really good and I had some good play. I won the pre-qualifier in Raleigh, the last event of the year. I shot 68. I didn't get it done in the Monday, but I came home and about maybe the 3rd week of October, decided I was going to kind of shut it down for a little bit. I just needed to just be home, be a dad, get back to my business because I worked for myself and COVID kind of hurt me. So I was kind of getting things going. So that I basically in November, I felt like, hey, I just want to continue this. I was just kind of hanging with the family, having fun, you know, and then we caught COVID in December. So I had 3 weeks where I was down from that. So since October, middle of October, I was kind of quiet, you know. So when I got over COVID right about Christmas time, I was anxious to get back and get practicing. So the last month has been great. I mean, it's been awesome to be back. I go to Apex Golf Lab. Quinn Griffin is my swing coach. He's just super generous. Those guys are great to give me a place to hang. So I'm just doing what I always do. I'm really not at a point in my career where I'm working on a ton of stuff anymore. I mean, my golf swing is my golf swing at this point. I'm not really, I don't find that working mechanically is really the way to go. So I work a lot on TrackMan. I work on just trying to have some really neutral numbers and be myself. And Quinn keeps an eye on me. And I've been just absolutely wearing out TrackMan putting at his place. I mean, I literally spend 70% of my time at his place on TrackMan putting, just trying to just understand what's going on in the greens, why balls start left, start right. And I'm just so excited for 2021, man. I just think it's going to be my best year.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to hear that. I'm interested with, you talked about your swing, not really working on anything specifically. Is it just a matter of reps at this point? What you're, you know, getting more reps, you know, or is it just like where you're at the point now close to the end of January where you're feeling ready?
Yeah, I'm feeling ready right now. Quinn and I, we look at numbers on TrackMan. We'll take a look at a little bit of video. It's really more just making sure there's nothing weird going on. And I don't ever see that. I mean, I look like I always look. I mean, I know what I do and what I don't do. He has a piece of equipment there called the K vest, which is a really neat piece of equipment he put on with some pelvic sensors and some upper body sensors, and we just kind of see how my body moves, and so we just make sure that my posture is good. I'm not slouching too much. I tend to get a little too over. I have a tendency to turn my lower half a little too early and kind of get the club behind me. So we just look at that real quick. Hey, everything looks good, and then we just practice and hit balls. But more than anything, right now, really is there's a book, there's a program that was developed by a guy by the name of Stephen Yellen called the Fluid Motion Factor, and Craig Isbell, who is Denny Hepler's son-in-law in Warsaw at Stonehenge, who's just a super talented player and teacher, a great young guy, is probably, besides Stephen Yellen, probably the guy in maybe the world that teaches it. And so that just teaches you how to play from a very quiet place and not underthink almost, under anticipate stuff. So I really work on that more than anything right now, is just really trying to play from a really quiet spot, a very calm place. Don't get too hyped up. Don't get too low. And I work on that as much as anything right now, to be honest with you.
So your mental states is something that you're working on. It sounds like you're healthy.
Certainly. I feel great. Yeah.
Got over COVID decently, it sounds like.
I tell you what, man, have you, I'm
no,
sorry,
I haven't had any issues.
Yet?
No.
Yeah. It's a scary thing, man. I have to admit, I wasn't particularly Holly and I were both kind of fluish, different, both very different. I lost my taste of sense, my taste and my smell were gone for almost a month. Listen, it's a relentless thing. I mean, I could see where people who are compromised catch it. It's not gonna let up on you. So, when people go the wrong way, it's scary. When I hear friends and family, or, my mom's going to be 93 here soon. I mean, if she caught it would be a problem. But when I hear that, it just makes me cringe, because it's just not going to let up. It's just not. So, take it serious, wear your mask, man, be careful. Don't play with this. It's not fun.
Yeah. I kind of want to get into, I want to go back quite a ways. I want to go back to kind of where you started, Northrop High School, and then Ball State. While you were playing in high school, was that something you picked up at a certain age, or was it, what age did you pick up golf, I guess, starting out?
Yeah. Well, my dad, when he was alive, told this story a lot. I remember most of this, but not all of it. But when I was 7, I went to a garage sale and found a rusty a cart and set of clubs, and came home. I came from a baseball family, a bunch of great athletes in my family. And baseball was our sport. So a lot of people thought that was kind of where I was going. I'm a lefty. I was pitching from the time I was a little 40. There's video of my dad at 4 years old standing 30 feet from me, throwing me real baseballs, and me catching it and winding up and throwing. I loved it. But when I discovered golf, my head about popped off. I just fell in love with it, and my dad saw it right away. And he took me to Shove Park. I got in Shove Park's junior program. I'm a Muni kid. That's where I grew up. And I went down the road to Riverbend when I was 13. And by the time I got to high school, I was winning golf tournaments. And a kid by the name of Brian Gottwald, I don't know if you know Brian or not. He's still around town playing. Yep. Brian and I were basically winning everything in our age groups for a long time. And going into Northrop, we came to realize that, he's at Shawnee and I'm at Jefferson. We're going to the same high school. And so our sophomore year, we won the state championship, and we're part of a team with myself and Brian and Chris Schaefer of the Y Store. If you know the Y Store, Chris Schaefer, the lead singer, he played golf with me at Ball State too. And Dave Welsh and Mike Riley, who owns Colonial Oaks. That was our squad. And we shocked the world, or felt like we did at that time, which was kind of fun. And so that's how it happened.
At what point in playing did you realize, hey, I might be pretty good, I might have something here? Was that in high school, or was it earlier than?
Well, because of my good buddy Brian Gottwald, I didn't get recruited really heavy coming out of high school. I mean, smaller schools recruited me. Big schools were recruiting him. Auburn, Alabama, big schools. He was a 3-time All-State guy. I never played number 1 in high school. I played more number 1 in college than I did high school, which I know sounds crazy. Yeah. But But I was a small kid too. I wasn't a very big kid. I mean, I grew 7 inches in 1 year. So I went from being, 5'4" to 5'11", between kind of the end of my sophomore year to the end of my junior year. So, I left high school, at 5'11", 100, barely 140 pounds. And when I left college, I was, 6 foot and 175 pounds. So, I mean, I just developed and got stronger and faster and hit it farther, and just kept all the good sort of small ball, short game stuff, and I was just built maybe better for college than maybe some of the other guys. And I've always been I think kind of a hungry guy, and I was hungry in college. I wanted it badly to play at Ball State. So,
Yeah.
So I wasn't really recruited that big, I really wasn't. And Coach Yestingsmeyer, my college coach, gave me a chance to walk on, and I walked on and made it stick,
At what point in time did you think beyond college?
Oh, right. Sorry, I got off there a little bit.
Oh no, you're good.
So I guess my point to all that, I got long-winded, I'm sorry. The point to that was, when I came out of high school, I didn't feel like I was like some super crazy good player. Even when I came out of Ball State, I had a very nice career at Ball State, but I didn't have a great career. I mean, I lost in 2 playoffs for college championships, and I won 1 tournament. So it wasn't like I had this amazing, career, but I was a solid player. Earl really liked me because, like, my senior year, I never shot over 78. I think my lowest round was 71, but my highest round was 78. He just liked that grinded out, consistent kid. That was just kind of perfect for his program, right? So I would say I felt like I had something really going as a professional. I turned pro right out of college at 91, but I didn't win my first tournament, pro tournament. It was a small tournament until like 95, maybe 96. It was right about 96 that I think at that point I was like, you know what? I feel like maybe I could be a pretty good player here. And it was 97 the next year that I got into 3 PGA Tour events. And then you really proved yourself that you got something maybe going. And it was right in that time frame that I felt like, I think I might be a good player.
The first win in 95, you said that was on a mini tour?
No. It was a local event. It was an Indiana event. It wasn't even an Indiana section event. It was a buddy of mine, Jerry Williams, who's no longer in the business anymore. But Jerry was in Geneva at Wabash Valley, and he had a pro-am, a really nice pro-am, I mean, really good players. And then afterwards, he took the 30 pros, and we played a shootout, a 9-hole shootout, and I won the shootout. And I think I made $1,500 maybe. I mean, which seemed like all kinds of money back then,
Right.
And that was really the first thing I won as a professional, where I was like, man, I just beat some good dudes. And, I'm surprised, when you win something like that, and the people that are there that think they're better than you are looking at you like, how did he win that? You're like, you know what, that's doing something, and that's what it felt like, at that time, because I was beating some guys who had been around, some older guys, and it was a big deal. I mean, it was a really big. I started winning every year after that. Once I won that, I started going. I started to believe in myself.
It probably gives you confidence to get it done, and when you get in that position again, you can draw back on those experiences and know you can do it.
Absolutely.
And so you mentioned in 97, you play 3 or 4 PGA Tour events?
3.
3. Okay. What was that experience like?
That was such a cool summer. Holly and I were just married. We've been married a year. There were members at Riverbend when I was the pro there, that had, Chris Barkus, Andy Jasper, some different people. Jasper Truck Sales was kind of helping me at that time. Mm-hmm. And, they just were in my ear to Monday qualify. I don't even really know why. You'd have to ask probably Chris, because I think Barkus was the one who really and he was just like, yeah, I think you need to go Monday. So he said, pick 3 and we'll pay for it, and you can go try. So I did. So Holly's sister was living in Chicago, or close to Chicago at the time. So we went up to her place. The first one I picked was the Western Open, 1997. So I go up to Monday qualify. We get washed on Monday. So now it gets pushed to Tuesday. So this is literally how it happens. So I make the turn at 1 over, which has no chance, right? And I birdied like 12 and 13 and 15. I started getting going, and I've got it maybe 10 feet on the last hole for 68, and I miss it. I tap it in. I go up. There's a number of 69s. There's a couple 67s. Frank Licklider's playing right behind me. He hits it in there a foot from the hole, makes it. He comes in 67. There's probably 30 guys out there. I'm like, well, this isn't going to work. And lo and behold, it just kind of kept falling off. So 7 of us get into a playoff. So we're all playing together. So I go to the first tee, Phil, and there's Bob Estes, Anthony Painter, all these tour guys there, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
First hole, 4 of us make birdie. I make birdie hitting their 10 feet. I'm the first one to make birdie. Some other guys had it close hole. It's a real easy, straight little hole. And literally the second hole, first guy gets up, hits it in the woods. Me and this other guy hit it right next to each other. We both lay it up right next to each other. He chips it up about 5 feet. I chip it up about 4. He misses it. And literally that quickly, I'm standing over a putt to get in the tour. That's exactly how it happened. I made it and I got in and I just was like, you don't even know what to do. You know, you're just like, what do I do? I'm calling the guys. They can't believe it. They're making plans to come up. So I missed the cut there.
And that's a big time tournament though. At the time in '97, I mean, that's a big tournament.
Tiger won.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that the one where he's walking down the fairway as a kid and, you know, 21 and everyone's behind him? I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he played with Mark O'Mara. That was when those guys were buddies, and they made the turn, and we teed off behind them. So he was only maybe like 4 or 5 groups in front of me, and the roars that day going up. I mean, it gives me goosebumps almost now thinking about it. It was unreal. Yeah, so anyway, awesome. so as the season went on, or as the summer went on, I got in the Buick. I had a ton of confidence going there. I went and won that qualifier, broke the course record, just had an amazing round, got in the Buick. I shot 72, 75 there maybe, and just missed the cut by a few. And then I went to Milwaukee and had no business getting in a playoff there. That's a funny story. You know, I don't know if you guys know who, I can't think of his name. I'm drawing a blank. Mark, I'll think of it. He was a guy who played on tour, and I knew of him because he was a really good player in Illinois at the time. He'd won their state open. He gets up in the first playoff hole. There's 4 of us, and he snap hooks it. It's a big swap hook out of bounds. And the guy calls it out of bounds because they had some people, you know, spotting, and he got in his cart and left. That was his playoff. He just got in the cart and drove off.
Man, he just knew, right? It was over.
I was up next. I was like, okay, I guess it's my turn. So the 3 of us all hit, and guy hits a terrible chip, and he makes bogey. And then a really, really good player by the name of Scott Hebert, who has won the National Club Pro, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he has, maybe a couple times. He was a really good player. I knew he was. I was about 50 feet from the hole putting for birdie. I putted down about maybe 5 feet. It was not a very good putt. And he just, I don't know what happened. He only had about 20 feet, and he putted it literally like halfway to the hole. He just sort of flipped, and then he missed the next one. And all of a sudden I got 5 feet for Milwaukee, and I made that. And I shot 71 there and missed the cut by a shot, or maybe two shots. So that's kind of how it went, man. It was just that quick. And all of a sudden it was like, what just happened? You know, how did this happen? It was an experience of a lifetime. It was cool.
No, those are some good stories. And real quick, so you mentioned the Monday qualifying, the pre-qualifying Monday qualifying for Champions Tour. Yeah. Monday qualifying the PGA Tour. I mean, you guys shoot like what, 63, 64, quite a bit.
It's very different now, man. It's very different now.
Than it used to be.
I don't know if I can answer it like that. I can tell you this: the Corn Ferry qualifying, because I'm not exactly sure how the PGA Tour. I think the PGA Tour is like the Champions Tour, where you just basically kind of have that 40, 50 player field. Mm-hmm. But the Corn Ferry now, they don't have a pre-qualifier, so you just sign up for the Monday. So when I was Monday and the PGA Tour at that time, the web.com, which I did try a couple of those and didn't get in, but they would have like 10 or 12 spots. And you'd have a full field, 144 players. Well, they decided that they could split those spots, put 6 at 2 spots, fill both of those fields, charge them twice as much, and I guess make money on it. I guess that's what it is now. So I did try 2 of those when I first kind of lost my amateur status and then started playing again. And I mean, if you don't shoot 66 or 5, you're not sniffing it. You can leave. You shoot 67, you might as well go put your stuff in the car. I know that sounds crazy, but it's insane out there how good those young guys are and how low they shoot. So that is certainly going on right now. The PGA Tour, I guess I'm not too sure, but yeah, you're probably right. 65, 66. Yeah.
Yeah. It just shows the level of competition and the depth of the guys that aren't even in the field yet.
Incredible.
Right? I mean,
incredible right now. I'm so glad to be done with the young kids. I'm so glad. I'd much rather play against the old guys right now. And let me tell you what, they're good as hell as well. They're so good. I've seen some unbelievably good golf in my 2.5 years doing this now, you know?
Yeah. So after you get those events in 97, so what does the next few years look like after that until you get your amateur status back in 06? Is that right?
Yeah, I played in 90. After that, I played a little bit the end of 97. I played almost all of 98. I had a small group of guys who helped me out, and I came to realize quickly that it wasn't the right time, and I wasn't quite good enough. Holly and I were newlyweds. We had no money. We were she was here working. I was going out trying to play the
Yeah.
Hooters tour and make
Yeah.
ends meet. It was
It's the reality of
brutal.
life, right? I
It
mean,
was brutal. It was
yeah.
brutal. So I came back and I got my PJ membership, and then I went and I taught. I taught full time almost 99 through 2003. That's what I did. I was teaching golf and I was playing, and I was very fortunate to have a great run in the Indiana PGA. I won at least, I guess I won maybe 3 or 4 section events at that time. I won our Indiana PGA. I was low pro in the state open a couple of times. There was money to be made. And so it was good. It was really good. But as I rolled out of 2003, post 9/11, I knew that I either needed to go somewhere where I could go teach 12 months, or I needed to think about doing something else. And at that time I had established a friendship and with Jim Flick when Jim was alive, the coach, as they called him. Coach was really cool. And so I called Coach, and we were trying to work on a teaching job in the desert, which he was helping me with, and it was looking pretty good. But Holly's dad was in not in very good health, and I could just see, we know our wives, right? And you can just see when she's talking about the potential to move, how much she really didn't want to. So I made the decision that I was just going to do something else. And I ended up in the car business. And somewhere, because when you get your amateur status back, it's retroactive. So even it isn't from the date that you apply, it's from your last violation. So I applied for it almost a year and a half later, because I knew I was going back to the violation and not the date I was doing it. So they gave me 2.5 years just based on my playing record. And somewhere around March of 2006, I was reinstated as an amateur.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite a lengthy process to go. I mean, from going to professional, getting your amateur status back. It's something I wasn't aware of until I kind of looked into it when we were kind of discussing, what we're going to talk about here. So you get your amateur status back, and you kind of go on a run in the Fort Wayne golf scene. I mean, let's just be honest. You win 5 cities in 7 years. The other 2 you don't win. You finish second and fourth. So that's I didn't look at the records, but that's pretty unprecedented or close to it. So talk about the Fort Wayne golf scene and those cities that you won. Is there any one that stands out more than the other?
Yeah. It was, when I came back, I hadn't competed in 3 years, and I walked away from playing professional golf really at the peak of my career, which surprised a lot of people. It didn't have anything to do with that as much as the business side of it, but people were looking at it as, oh man, you won the PGA, you've won this, you've done that, and now you're gonna quit. So I was, for lack of a better term, I was licking my wounds a little bit. I mean, I wanted to be back in competitive golf, but I didn't know how people would feel about me being back. So, the first couple of years that I played, I didn't play much. I mean, I literally played 2 golf association events in 06 and won the city, because I didn't really want to. I felt like maybe I was stepping on people's toes a little bit,
Right.
And so in 2007, I came out and I decided to play the Spring Open, which was the first event of the year. And
Foster Park usually, right?
It was at Foster Park. And so I got my push card out, and I walked around to the green on the backside of the clubhouse, and everybody was just like, it's just like I was one of the guys. You know what I mean? Like everybody, Scotty P, what's going on? How you doing? Coming up, hugging. And I literally got in my car after that first round and started crying, to be honest with you, because the warmness and the feeling I had from those guys was like almost nothing I'd experienced in golf. And I just fell in love with golf again. I mean, they really pulled me onto the Champions Tour, if you want to know the truth, because the competition with them and playing with them and getting to know them, becoming a part of the board of the Fort Wayne Golf Association, and the wins. Yeah, the wins are great, man. I those 5 wins are so special to me, but it was just what golf became to me again through that group of people is immeasurable, because I just loved competing there. If there's any amateur golf I miss, it's playing with those guys. So I show up at their events occasionally. Like once in a while, you'll see me at a golf association event, just kind of walking around, seeing people and watching my buddy Matt Schmidt or David Belleville, just because I just love those tournaments and love those guys. But out of all of the events is probably the 2006, the first one. My dad was dying of cancer at the time. He had brain cancer. He was in bad shape, and he was able to come to that the last day and watch me win my first city.
Yeah.
And just a cool story about that, just since we're talking about it, is, when he passed away in November, my folks had decided they wanted to be cremated and then buried, plotted next to each other, which was a little bit different. When I found that out, I was like, okay, that's kind of okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. So we needed to get an urn for my dad. Well, Mike Reiki was the president at that time, and he had switched it up, and I got this beautiful glass trophy about this big, probably, and it was just a glass empty thing. So we ended up burying my dad in it. So, my trophy is with him forever.
That's awesome.
Which is why it's the most special one, yeah. Big time.
No, that's understandable.
Yeah.
You mentioned when you first got your amateur status, came back and played on the FWGA, that there maybe was some trepidation just kind of coming back, and maybe a little nervous about the feedback from people. Did you get any sort of blowback from anybody playing, like, oh man, this guy used to be a pro and now he's with us? No. And I was pretty conscientious of it too at times, because in 2008 through 2010, I was carrying a +6 handicap. I was playing the best golf of my life. I was winning a lot. I was winning at the state level. I won 2 PGA section events, entered as an amateur, because amateurs can play in those. So, I made the Final Four of the Western Amateur. There was a lot going on there. So I was really careful. Again, I don't want to sound the wrong way. I was careful not to play in everything. Yeah.
I didn't want to be that guy. I really didn't. I didn't want to be that guy. I loved playing and I loved competing. I didn't feel like I was just going to go win everything. I didn't feel that way, but I was just conscientious about making sure that I kind of played the right amount and didn't play too much, and didn't want to get in anybody's way or make anybody feel like that. There was always some trepidation there, but no one made me feel that way. Those guys never made me feel that way. As a matter of fact, a lot of those guys would be like, I want you to play. They start challenging you. They want to play you,
They want to play the best.
That's just the competitiveness of it. But I was always a bit careful, even like scrambles. Sometimes you go play those big hole scrambles or those money scrambles where you're really trying to do well. But if someone invited me to play in a scramble at that time, if we had a really good team, I usually turn it down. But if we had a really kind of crappy team or just a fun team, because I didn't want to win those. I don't want to win that event. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean? So, but no, nobody ever made me feel that way. They're just the best group of guys I've ever known.
Yeah. I played on in the association events since I was 18, which is, I guess 2001 now, but I've been playing it for almost 20 years. And you're right. The camaraderie between the guys, everyone kind of roots for each other in a way. If someone gets, posts a good round, a good tournament, there's always a lot of guys there waiting for you to let you know.
No question. Couldn't agree more.
It is a good group of guys, and you beat some really good players in those cities where, this isn't any slouches we're talking about. The guys that finished second to you in some of those tournaments.
Hey, Phil, when I say this, I mean this sincerely. I didn't step into one city thinking I was just going to go wax at this field. Not one time, not once. I knew if I didn't play my best, I wasn't going to win. You look at remember Eric Johnston, when Eric Johnston was here? Eric Johnston was the best prospect to go play the PGA Tour in the last 20, 25 years up to that point. If you ask me at that time, I played with him, and, he just had a bad 9 holes that last day and gave me a chance to kind of get ahead of him. And I made some birdies down the stretch, and he wasn't able to answer, and I ended up winning. But he was on his way to shooting 18, 19 under there halfway through the tournament. And I was 6, 7 shots back, just going, man, I don't think I can beat this kid. Yeah. There's a lot of great players. A lot. You look at like the Steve Vernascos of Fort Wayne. How good
amazing.
He is. Amazing. He's so good, man. He's 60, whatever. He's 10 years old. So he's 63 years old. He's a beast. Yep. These guys are all, I tell you what, the level of play at the Golf Association is, I'm so proud of those wins. I really am. I love the group.
I said to someone today, I was looking at some of the past city winners, and Sam Till won his first city, I think, in 82, and then his last one in 15. 33 years apart. That's pretty incredible. The level of competition. I know one year Justin Huber was right there, and that
was the year I won. He was second.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you look
So
at him now. I mean, I
look at him
wouldn't want to
now.
play him now.
Right. Right.
I mean,
Right.
he's probably, I wouldn't be surprised if he earned a PGA Tour card at some point here. He's that good. And I see him when he comes to town. I watched him practice at Cherry a little bit. He just hits bombs. He can't even hit drivers at Cherry Hill.
Oh,
He's hitting it in the
yeah.
trees, you know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's unreal. You know, real quick about Sammy, when I had when I had Birdies and Bogies, when I had the radio show, we had Steve Bernasco actually sit in for Stiller when he was gone one week. And so I wanted him to rate the best players that have ever played in Fort Wayne. I wanted his top 3. I was thinking in terms of anybody. He was kind of thinking in terms of amateurs. But I had Sam Till, and I still believe this, and this is nothing against Tom Kelly, who's got 9 cities. He's my friend. I love him. Tommy, TK, what's up? But Sam has won in so many decades, and he's won locally, regionally, national senior events. He's the best amateur that's ever played in our town, the best career amateur that's ever played, just based on his body of work nationally, regionally, citywide, all over the country. I don't think we have anybody better than him. I put him at the top number 1 right now.
Yeah. And the longevity, I mean,
unreal.
It's
unreal,
amazing.
unreal. I've got nothing but love for him. Sam, what's happening?
That's awesome. So your last city was in 2012. And
Right.
So in 2013, I'm assuming you have a full slate of amateur events, and and from what I understand, you're playing some, and while you're in the middle of a big amateur event, statewide event, you get some news. So let's kind of get that one out there.
Yeah, this started back probably in 2011, to be honest with you. And what happened was Rick Hemsoth, who's been my lifelong swing coach, my brother in golf, connected me with Glenn Solwack of Cleveland Tricks on Golf. And so Glenn was like, hey, listen, if you want some balls or if you need some equipment, I can put you on a program where you can get like half off a cost, personal use, right? And then they send you golf balls. Well, in 2005, the USGA put a rule in that said amateurs can accept merchandise. There's some limits to it. You can't just accept everything. You can't turn around and sell it. You know, there's rules to it.
Right.
But for college players, for top shelf amateurs, whatever, you can accept merchandise. So that wasn't a really well-known rule. And so as people saw me, you know, now have a Cleveland bag, wearing a Shrixon hat, just all on my own. It's no agreement I have with them.
Right.
And telling people that, yeah, you know, I'm getting some balls from them. There were some guys questioning that. This went on starting in 11, and it kind of kept going. It kind of kept going. It kind of kept going. And so after my little city win in 2013, I was in the parking lot and I got confronted by Mike Davis and by Ron Schmucker, the president, vice president of the Golf Association, and they were questioning it. And I said, you know what? I wasn't mad or anything. I just said, you know, I'm going to submit something to USGA. I've had enough. There's no problem with this. The rules are clearly stated. Let's just let them rule on it, and let's get past it, okay? Because I'm tired of talking about it, because there's nothing wrong with this. Right. Well, I had done a 10-second testimonial for Eric Touche on a Golf Etc. commercial because Eric had helped me. I liked Eric. I went to the rule book. I looked at the rule. It didn't look like there was an issue. And so I did it, you know, and I basically just said, hey man, he's helped me and I recommend anybody go to him. That's all I did. Yep. And so in a meeting, a board meeting of the Golf Association, someone asked me if I got paid for that or heard I got paid for it. I said, come on, you guys, it's Eric Touche. He's not paying me to do 10 seconds. I'm just trying to help the kid, you know. No, I didn't get paid. But because that was questioned, when I submitted everything, I put that in there. I put everything in there. I put that in there as well. And I called Mike David, the executive director of the Indiana PGA, and I said, Mike, this is what's going on. Mike's a former Ball State guy, great friend. And I said, I really would like to just kind of go through the USGA. He said, all right, I'll help you. So he submitted to the USGA. So fast forward a month, 5 weeks later, whatever, I'm playing in the state amateur. I played in the state am. I was runner up the year before. I was playing great. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go get this. It's at South Bend Country Club. And I woke up the morning after the first round. I think I shot, 71 or 2 the first day. Scores weren't super low. It's a hard golf course. And I get up and 6 o'clock in the morning, Mike sends me an email, says, hey, we need to talk. I was like, whoa, I mean, that doesn't sound good. And so the USGA ruled at that time that they felt I violated my amateur status by the commercial, not the relationship with Shrixon Cleveland, although they asked, do you have agreements with them to wear their hat and stuff? I said, no, I wear their stuff because I want to, it's not a big deal. But they went straight to the commercial. So a guy by the name of Bernie Lahr was the head of the USGA for that. So he included his direct number on there. So I picked the phone up right away early in the morning and woke his butt up and said, hey, what's going on? So their ruling was that I personally benefited from it. This even sounds crazy even saying it, but we'll see it. We'll see how you feel. I violated it because I personally benefited from the commercial because I could, not that I did, I could receive tournament invites. That was their rule.
Which is hypothetical, right?
He said that to me, and I said, hang on, time out. I said, you're going to pull my amateur status? You're going to rip my amateur status from me of something that could happen? I said, is Jack going to call me to play in the Memorial or something because I did a 10-second commercial for Eric Touche? I mean, do you understand how crazy this sounds to me? And he was dug in, man. He was like, nope, this is the deal. You can appeal it if you want, is what he said. You can appeal it. I was like, okay, whatever. So that all of a sudden, things got turned upside down, turned on its head, man, in 10 minutes.
So they deemed that it could help elevate your status to potentially receive additional invites to tournaments. That's it.
That was the rule. So now,
did they say there was a precedent that was set before this happened to someone else? Or?
I don't know if that was specifically asked, but they sure seemed intent on what it was going to be, So then, you go, where do you go from there? I'm like, so I call Holly. She can't believe it. So then I didn't know what to do. So on the way home, I called Tommy Shagler, who was at 21 Alive at the time. And I said, hey, you want a exclusive? And he was like, yeah, what's up? And I go, you won't believe this, but I just lost my amateur status. He goes, what? Yeah. I said, I'm just telling you, man. And he goes, just drive straight to the station. So that's what I did. So I drove there, and then it was on the news, and, my phone's blowing up. And then what happened was, somehow, some way through all of this, and I don't even really quite understand, Phil, but it got picked up by the Golf Channel and NBC News, and all of a sudden it started going viral, and I started having Golf Week call me and the Golf Channel, and all of a sudden it's just like, whoa, what's going on? It's all over. It's on the internet. You can look it up, and it's it was just like,
man, it's still there. It's still there, by the way.
I know, it was crazy. It was insane, and so. At that point, you're just like, man, should I appeal it? Should I try to get my amateur status back? What should I do? And we were kind of bouncing around. And then I got two phone calls. One from someone, it doesn't matter who it is, but it's someone who's in golf. And then another was from someone in Indy that was more on the legal side of things. But they thought I should sue the USGA. We had the Casey Martin thing. We had even Fort Olinger, they're suing over cart use and all this stuff. But, they're saying, this is a big deal because now the USGA is, we don't think they're right for this. We think this is, a bunk ruling, and this could be an opportunity to, change what amateur status is in the game. And, they were just, my head was spinning. I was just like, I can't afford to do this. It'll be pro bono, whatever. And so that happened maybe 2 days after. And then the day after that, I started getting phone calls from players, one in Indiana, and then several that are kind of a little more were asking me what the heck was going on, because they did a commercial for a golf course 2 years ago and hit shots on that commercial. And now there's people locally challenging them because they think they can get their amateur status ripped because they're winning in that area. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And so,
yeah, it blows up into a bigger situation.
It was unreal. And so, long story, just to wrap it up, was we were on the back porch. Holly and I were sitting there. This was after all this went on. This is 5 days after the story hit and everything. And she just leaned over to me, and she kind of just put her arm around me. She said, I want to say something, if you want to hear it. I said, I do. And she said, maybe this is just where we're supposed to be. Maybe this is where we're supposed to be. You're going to turn pro at 50 anyways. You're going to look, you've had your fun. You won 5 cities. You know what I mean? It's just, maybe it's time to move on and start looking back, start looking forward to what's in front of us. And it was the best advice she gave me. I told everybody, no, I'm not suing the USGA. I'm not putting my energy into that. I'm going to put my energy into getting better and continue to move forward. And I'm going to start playing professional golf again. And the radio show happened, which would have never happened if I would have tried to, take the other path. And that became a 6-year love affair for me. So I have no regrets whatsoever. I have no ill feelings towards the USGA. I think the rule needs to be changed. I mean, think about this, Phil. We look at these Titleist commercials, and you see the amateurs on Titleist commercials hitting balls and stuff. I mean, according to the USGA, quite honestly, they should all lose their amateur status.
Sure.
I mean, Lucy Lee had her ruling this year where she was on the Apple Watch commercial, and I talked about it on a video on my Facebook page, and my thoughts were absolutely she should not lose her amateur status. But did she violate amateur status? Of course she did. But she's just promoting the women's game. She's just promoting girls amateur golf. She didn't accept anything. Who cares? I mean, it needs to be redefined. It's just not right. It's just, listen, if you're a pro, you're doing it for cash. If you're not doing it for cash, you're an amateur. Doesn't mean, think of all the media that's out there. Think of what we're doing right now. There's a lot of that now. It needs to be rethought what amateur status is in the game, and let amateurs promote the game. What's the harm in that? There's no harm in that. It doesn't hurt anybody. So that's kind of how it all went down, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of rule changes in golf, the actual on the course rule changes the last couple of years. And a lot of it has to do with intent. And it sounds like this situation where what was the intent? And the intent was, to help out a friend, 10-second plug of their business. And
no money exchanged, right? No money.
It sounds like there needs to be some common sense that comes into play. But I will say the USGA there's been some other stuff on course rulings where, we go back to the Dustin Johnson thing in 2016. DJ. I mean, so maybe this common sense thing isn't their thing. And I know you probably don't want to say too much about the USGA.
No, it's okay. Listen, I don't have a problem with it. If I had the USGA on here with us, I would say the exact same things that I said. I mean, I don't have anything against them. I think there's just, you come across organizations and people in your life that just think they're a little more important than they really are. And I think that's the best way to explain them. They think, they want to be the story in golf sometimes instead of being behind the story, right? The Royal and Ancient, seems to do a better job maybe of that, of just kind of being in the back behind everything, where, you look at a US Open, they come in 2 years ahead of time. They want to, hey, you got to change this. You got to do this. You got to do that. We're going to mow this. We're going to do that. The RNA says, you know what? Just go play. They don't do anything with the golf course differently. They might roll the greens a little bit and speed it up. They play the course as it is. Go compete, right? I mean, they're just two different organizations, but I have nothing against the USGA at all. Nothing. I played in the Senior US Open in 2018. It was one of the most magical moments of my life in golf, and they ran a great show, and I have nothing but respect for them. But my situation was just a little, I think they mishandled it myself.
I mean, it sounds like you've kind of forged ahead with a positive attitude and spun it in a way that you could make a positive out of it and look forward to the Champions Tour. But you had a gap there, obviously, because you were around 45 when that happened. And
yeah, exactly. I was 45 years old.
So that I kind of want to get into that little stage where you had with the radio show, Birdies and Bogeys. How did that come about? Yeah,
Birdies and Bogeys happened really because of Marty Aloff, who is Stiller. People know him as Stiller. And he had started a radio show with someone else and had me on the show, and then it kind of went south. And so at some point he asked me if I would finish the season with him. That was kind of our first season, and we did a number of shows together. And then he said, hey, do you want to go with this? It was called Tee to Green at the time, was the name of the show. And it was owned by Federated Media. And so then Stiller got a job in Columbus, Ohio. He got an opportunity in radio that was at that time was a once in a lifetime type thing. And so he left. And so Billy Elvis came in and did the show with me to keep the show going. And that was a challenge for about a year and a half, because we were recording the show on Friday night, acting like it was live on Saturday, because that was the only time he could do it. He was working radio in Lima, Ohio. He was driving his butt over every day, every Friday, and giving himself literally a 2-hour window. But if we couldn't get it done in those 2 hours, we don't have a show for the week. We did that for almost a year and a half, and it was good. And then Marty Stiller came back to town. And when he came back, I talked to Billy and just asked him if he wouldn't mind allowing Marty to come back so we could start doing the show live again, because Saturday mornings he couldn't do. And he was an absolute gentleman about it and a great friend, and said yes. And then we went to Federated and said, hey, we want to own the show. Would that be okay? And they said, sure. So we took over ownership of the show and got our own sponsors and did what you're doing. And we did that for almost 3 seasons, I guess 3 seasons. And it was,
yeah,
I would have never guessed I'd love doing it as much as I did. It was so great. I just had so much fun. It was just a blast. You're going through it right now, man. You know, it's awesome. It's just, it's a lot of fun. You know?
I remember listening. I mean, I would wake up on Saturday mornings, even when I was home, and I would want to listen to it just because I wanted to hear what you guys were going to talk about that, for that show. But I thought you guys were outstanding together, and the chemistry.
Yeah,
I mean, that's something that you can't make up, and and listeners can kind of identify if that's a real thing, and you guys seem to have it.
Well, you hit it right on the head. That was always the thing with us. And so, as you know, in the last season was my first year. That was when I had my tour card. And so we decided, well, listen, we're going to go forward with the show. We'll have some people sit in, and people did great jobs. Eric Touche, David Belleville. I know I'm missing people. Sorry for if I not remember, but they were kind of the 2 main people. But we just couldn't hook up and do the show enough. And by the end of the year, we were like, listen, the schedule's not working anymore. Every Saturday morning isn't working. Stiller's lovely wife, Kayla, was pregnant. So they were going to have a little one. I was, on the road. It just ran its course. It wasn't anything between Marty and I or, any animosity with Federated Media, nothing. Everything was great. When we sat down and decided we were going to be done, there was a lot of hugs and thank yous and a lot of, some sadness in the room too, because it was the show did exceptionally well. I mean, it was very popular. It was fun. So I loved it. I did, man. It was a blast to just talk golf for an hour every Saturday on the radio. It was just, it was great, man. And you're going through it now with your show, and it's going to continue to get better and better and better. But your passion for it, you can tell, you can feel it, man. That's what you need. And you've got it, man. It's cool
thanks,
what
man.
you're doing.
No, I appreciate it. Cool. So kind of to put a bow on it, then we get to 2019, right? I mean, that's so tell us about the, getting on the Champions Tour and sort of how that year goes for you.
Yeah. So, people like to always ask me about Q School because, there's this thing at Q School being just this pressure packed, freaky thing. And it can be, but it's really what you make of it, and I've been able to play really well in Q School. I mean, I won the East region in my first Q School. I finished 3rd the year that I got my tour card. I just been able to play just like I normally play and not be too caught up in that. So I went through the finals of Q School with my buddy John Wall, who's my caddy, who is a full-time caddy at the Concession Club in Florida. He is from New Haven. I met him through Dave Alverson and Quinn Griffing, and he had 2 caddies for me when I play. He's caddied at all of my champion stuff. And so he was at Q School with me, and we just had a kind of a mediocre week. It was just, there was certainly more pressure at the finals. I mean, it was tough. Yeah. And when I got done, I was at +6. We're playing TPC Tampa Bay, which is just a really, really hard golf course. And so I finished at +6. I hold about a 4-footer on the last hole, and I was +6. So I came in, I looked at the board, and I called Holly and I said, we need to be ready for bad news. And she was like, well, just, typical, your support, just hang in there. It's going to be fine. And Johnny keeps going, dude, we're going to be fine. We're going to make it, dude. We're going to make it. I'm like, hey, John, we're not going to make it. This isn't going to happen, man. I got to be in the top 30. I'm 36 right now. You're looking at, the best guys in the field are on the back 9. It's not going to happen. So we went in and we ate, we went out and we chipped and putted, and John kept checking his phone. And he's like 33, 32. And then David Moreland, who, was certainly going to get inside the top 30, a guy that I played a lot of college golf against in Kent State, still play against him on Champions Tour. David Moreland's a good man. David, how you doing? He unfortunately made double on the last hole to go about 1 behind me. And when that happened, all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, we might have a card, Yeah. And Craig Kanata had about a 30-footer on the last hole to bump me or for me to get in, and he missed it. And I was a little disoriented. Like I didn't know if I was in, I wasn't. And Brian Cooper, who's, Tom Workmeister, Brian Cooper, and John Inman are my guys on the Champions Tour. And Coop was already in. and knew he was going to be inside the top 30. He just kind of came behind me and almost tackled me, to be honest. And he's a big dude. He's like 6'3" and 220. You know, he's this huge guy. And he just came in and got me from behind, and he was hitting me on the chest and smacking me and saying, "You made it." And at that point, I realized I was, you know, I got in the top 30. And when you make the top 30, you're a member of the tour, which gives me makes me a member of all the TPC clubs in the United States. I can go play any TPC club for nothing. I just call the PGA Tour concierge, go practice anywhere I want.
That's a decent perk.
It was unreal, dude. I'll tell you, I played a bunch of them. I mean, they were great. And then it gives you, you know, membership on the Champions Tour, which I had, and then it gives you privilege to go, you know, straight to Mondays. And I played 10 that year and I made 2. I won the Monday qualifier with Coop, which was cool. The two of us were both in Atlanta, and then we actually both got into Canada as well. I got into a playoff in Canada against Guy Burrows and Patrick Sheehan, and I made about a 20-footer on the first playoff hole, and I got in and I played in Canada, and those were the 2 events I got in.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a good story.
Yeah.
So you played in the Senior Open in 2018, is that correct?
18, yeah, in 18.
And that was in Colorado?
Colorado. Broadmoor, Colorado,
yeah.
Colorado Springs.
So tell us about what that's like playing in, I mean, a major championship like that.
Yeah. Well, it was my first major. You know, I missed the U.S. Open by a shot in 2003, and I missed getting in the PGA through the National Club Pro in 2002 by a shot. So I was close to getting in a couple, but it wasn't until the senior major. But it was a challenge because I'd never played in Colorado before, and you know the air's, you know, the ball flies more and all that, and so I actually was, for 3 weeks prior, I was at Apex on TrackMan. You can simulate altitude. And so we were simulating altitude, trying to get our numbers right, which is really interesting because they'll tell you that it's 10%, right? Is what how you should, you know, take off or whatever. But that's not really true, because the higher we found out on TrackMan that the higher you hit it with a club, the farther it goes in relation to your normal. So wedges go farther. But if you hit a 4-iron that doesn't get in the air as much, is more penetrating, it doesn't go 10% farther.
Right.
So it was really interesting to me. So I did great work with Quinn, man. We had a great grid of numbers. The numbers were right on. But the mountain influence was so crazy at the Broadmoor that you would putt a ball. And I know this is hard to believe, but let's say you had a ball that broke left, the ball would curl on if it was coming, like if the mountain was straight to one side or the other. So if I had the mountain on this side and it was going this way, the ball would stop and it would almost kind of come back. It would curl. The mountain influence was impossible. I mean, how some of the guys shot some of the scores they shot out there, it's just probably experience, I guess. But you know, we got to play with Larry Mize. Tom Workmeister and I were both in, my good buddy Tommy, who I just mentioned. And we played with Larry Mize and Corey Pavin in a practice round on that Tuesday. That was unreal. That was incredible.
It's awesome.
The people that we met was just, the stuff that you saw was just incredible. It's crazy.
Yeah. Any good stories, not necessarily just from that week, but about any of the other weeks that you've played Champions Tour events? Maybe something that might be noteworthy about, you know, like maybe like a big name, like a Corey Pavin.
Well, I got a bunch of them, but I'll give you 2 really, really kind of funny ones. One is, there was a player, and I probably shouldn't mention his name. I guess I won't, because on Monday night when I went to the Broadmoor, this all happened at the Broadmoor on Monday, actually. But I go back to the locker room and he's trashed. He's drunk. He's been drinking. He's hammered. And I mean bad, like his dudes are trying to get him out of there. Yeah. So on Tuesday morning, when we're going to play with Larry and Corey, it's 8, we teed off at 8:00. So I'm out on the range at 7, you know, whatever, you know, you're excited, right? It's the US Open. I mean, we're playing with Corey Pavin and Larry Mize. We couldn't sleep, you know? So I get out there and this player who was hammered at 7:00 night before is there. And I walked by him and you could still smell the alcohol on him. Okay. So we go to the practice screen. So the way it's set up is there's a practice screen down off of the tee of the range. So the range is up here, you walk down practice screen, and then 60 yards that way is short game area. Okay. And it's all fairway, and you know, that's where you're hitting wedges and bunkers and stuff. So this player, I'm not making this up, and it's packed out there. There's all kinds of players everywhere. And he walks out to the practice green, and I'm on that side of the green. I'm not more than 15 feet from him. And he walks out on the green. He's got a wedge in his hand, and he drops 3 balls right on the green. And he's still, from the night before. And he proceeds to hit 3 balls off the practice green to the short game area, right off the green. Now, in all fairness to him, I walked over and looked. He didn't touch the green. It's the most impressive thing I've ever seen in my life, man. But he hit that 3rd ball and he walked off and he kind of stumbled off. And Kenny Pieri was standing right there. And I just saw him turn around and look at his buddy and kind of threw the a-hole word at him, like, what a jerk, But that happened at the U.S. Open. I looked at Tom Werkmeister. I was like, you got to be kidding me. That just happened, That's one story. The other one that's kind of funny there was when I was going to pick up John Wall, my caddy. I was in my car. I was talking to my wife, and someone came up to the window and kind of started being all crazy at the window. I look over, and it's Carlos Franco.
Oh, sure.
And he thought I was someone else. And so then he realizes, and he goes, "Oh man, amigo, I'm so sorry." And I go, "No, you're good." And all week I kept running into Carlos Franco everywhere. Like I come around the corner and he'd be there and he'd be like, "Hey man."
Right.
"Hey Carlos," and it was all week. It went on and on. And one of Tom's buddies ran into him at the bar the night before the last round. And I told that story, and he goes, "Dude, I just saw him last night." And I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I met him. He was standing right there." And I turned around and I just said, he said, I'd had a few beers, and I just said, "Carlos, hey man, I'm such a fan. It's great to meet you." And he goes, "Hey man, great to meet you." He's a super friendly guy. People just love him on the Champions Tour. And he goes, "Hey," he goes, "how'd you play today?" And Carlos goes, "Man, the hole was that big." And so I saw him on that Sunday, and I went up to him and asked him if he remembered saying that to our buddies. And he said, yeah. And he took a picture with me. And there's a lot of that goes on out there. The camaraderie on the Champions Tour is way different than the PGA Tour stuff. That's a pretty very competitive, very dog eat dog, with good reason. The money out there is unbelievable, and everybody's really fighting hard. And there's so many good young players. But the Champions Tour is a cool place to be, man. It really is. The guys out there are amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I just watched the tournament last week in Hawaii that Clark won. I mean, it just seems like there's the guys out there. They're playing competitively, but there's a laid back vibe to it, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of refreshing to watch because there's a different vibe to it. But I love watching Champions Tour. I mean, the golf is super underrated.
Yeah. Well, listen, the guys out there can flat play, every single one of them. It's awesome. I've had the chance to play with Jerry Kelly, with Kurt Byram, with David McKenzie, with, as I mentioned, Corey and Larry. I played with Tommy Tolles, Mark Calcavecchia. It's unbelievable how good these guys are, man. It's so much fun. It really is. And you're right. The camaraderie is incredible. I mean, it's my first event in Atlanta. I walked in the locker room, and I don't know anybody really, but you're saying hi to people and acting like you know what you're doing. And I went to my locker, and your manufacturer Shrixon puts golf balls in there for me and gloves, and it's nice, And so I'm leaving, and as I'm walking out, Mike Goodis walks in. Now Mike Goodis has been on the tour for a long time. He's won a couple of times, but he was an amateur from North Carolina. He was a newcomer at one time, and he sees me and just makes a beeline for me. He goes, "Hey, Scott." Now, I've never met him before, but these guys all pay attention to who Mondays and who doesn't. And so they kind of decipher, well, I know everybody here except this one guy. That must be Scott. I mean, he just walked right at me, and he just walked right up to me, and he shook my hand. He said, "Hey, dude, congratulations. I know this is your first event. Best of luck. If you need anything, just don't even hesitate. If I'm around, you see me in eating, you just come sit with me." I mean,
that's very cool.
I was like, you gotta be kidding me, man. That goes on out there all the time. Those guys, there's, listen, everybody has their kind of whatever people or whatever, but I mean, 99% of the guys in the Champions Tour are just gentlemen, just fabulous.
Oh, I'm interested in playing with these guys, playing with some of the names that you've talked about. Is there anything that you've picked up from playing with them that you kind of maybe said, "Oh man, that's something I want to try"? If it's course management, something with their golf swing, something with their putting, is there anything like that you've kind of like a chameleon kind of pick up?
Well, I can just say that, at that level, it's kind of always been like this, because remember, I did play 3 PGA Tour events, and I got to see that at that time. It's people focus in on the distance, how far guys hit it, a Tiger, or right now, a DeChambeau or whoever. But it's the way I would explain tour players, or the best guys I've seen out there, is whether they hit wedge or forehand, it all looks the same. it's just the most consistent of everything. And it's so simple. It's not some guys aren't hitting these amazing shots that you're just like, I can't believe, how good that was. It's different. It's just one right after the other. They just don't miss. They birdie every par 5. They shoot 4 under, and then they go on the next day and they do it again. And if they do it for 4 days, they're 16 under. And I mean, that's how they do it. Yeah. So it's the simplicity, the relaxed atmosphere of it, how calm they are, which is kind of what I said earlier. I was working on, it's that just sureness of it. The confidence is just amazing.
Is that change in your mentality or what you're trying to change? Do you feel like at some points you've tried to force the issue? Has that caused you to want to change that thought process? Or
no, I would say that it's a lack of when you're not out there a lot, it's a foreign environment, right? Obviously your heart rate is, if you put a heart rate monitor on me, you put a heart rate monitor on Kurt Byram in Atlanta, I guarantee you Kurt's heart rate is, probably 70. Mine's probably 120. Right. You know what I mean? So that speeds you up. You know what I mean? You make decisions quicker. You're talking faster. Your timing's a little off, So I just think that it's more of just a level of comfort that they just have out there, that they're just it just seems easy to them, where you're out there and it almost seems hard. You know what I mean? Right. So it's just, the more you play in that environment, the more you get inside those ropes, the more you have success inside those ropes, the easier it gets. There is a factor there, but I just feel it's that more than anything else. I don't think it's a talent level. I don't think if you watch me hit balls in the range next to whoever, that it would look that different. I might even hit it farther, but it's just a level of consistency and comfort that's just amazing for guys that have been out there for 20, 25, 30 years,
Yeah, well, that makes sense. In your career, and this can go way back, is there anyone that you've seen hitting balls on the range or that you've played with that you're like, oh, man, that guy's different. He's different than the rest?
Yeah. Well, Tiger for sure back in 97 was insane. The story I tell about him is, the 15th hole at Cog Hill is a par 5 that I missed the cut. So I played for 2 rounds, and I drove a golf ball just off the left side of the fairway down next to a bunker, and Tiger drove it there in the final round in my divot. He hit it in the exact same spot. And when I went down there, my dad was right there, because the on the hole, they let the patrons in on the left side. That's where I hit it. On the right side, you could never get over there. So my dad was standing right there, and he even said after the round, he goes, "Man, was that some spin that you were in on 15?" And I took out an 8-iron and I chopped it as hard as I could. I probably moved it 120 yards up the fairway, which was fine. I wedged it in the green. I made my 5. I went on. He drove it right in the exact same spot in the final round, and he knocked a 4-iron on the green and made 4 and 1.
Yeah.
There's no way. I saw that, and I just looked at my wife. I said, what? Yeah. There's no way. You can't. It's not possible. It's just not possible. So, yeah, I would say on the Champions Tour, and I've said this many times, I thought there was one guy I saw in person that was above everybody else in terms of just shot making and what he was doing, and I think that's the mechanic. I think it's Miguel Angel Jimenez. To me, at the time I was out there, I was just jaw dropping, to be honest with you. And it's not that he hits it so much farther than anybody, but just his ability to move the ball up and down, to shape it, to not be afraid to shape it. There's a, certainly when you're out there playing, like for me, I don't move the ball around much in tour events. I'm kind of going to my stock shot just because you're comfortable with that, right? To try to, cut a ball into a green that you don't really need to, you know what I mean? I can still draw it in there. Maybe it's not a perfect pin for it, but I'll just take the fat side of the green. Man, he's unbelievable, man. He's hitting it high, low, cut and drawn around the green. Some of the up and downs I witnessed of him at the U.S. Open, because I went out and followed him a little bit. Give me a break, man. The guy's just so talented. There's just not an ounce of fear in him. None. He's unreal. Yeah.
I didn't expect you to say his name, but I can see where you're coming from with that. He does seem to have an amazing amount of consistency, and he played at a high level even on the Euro Tour, and when he played in majors up until he's close to 50. So,
well, he hasn't made a ton of noise the last 2020 obviously was a little bit off, and now we're just getting in 2021. But up till 2019, mechanic is And he's one of the best 2 or 3 players out there, hands down. No, and obviously longer is longer. I mean, I haven't seen him play a ton. I've been on the range with him. I've been near him. He's a friendly guy. He said hi to me. I got a nice picture with him at the U.S. Open. But the mechanic was, I mean, he's just off the charts.
Cool dude too. I mean, he seems like the best.
He is a cool dude. The coolest, right? The coolest guy in golf.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I'm kind of interested, you know, with the game going into a little bit more in depth in analytics as far as like stroke gain metrics, stroke gain off the tee, stroke gain approach, stroke gain putting, whatever it may be. Is that something that you look at, you know, if for yourself, for your own game, to kind of identify what you're doing well, what you're not doing well?
I certainly, if I had a full season out there and had that much, you know, my stats, if you look at my stats on my PGA Tour page, there's not a ton there, and they're not very good because I finished 55th maybe in Atlanta, and maybe like 74th or something. I only beat, I think, 4 guys in Calgary. But I was hurting that week. Unfortunately, I got to Calgary that week. I felt great, and it went downhill. But
well, maybe a better question would be: would you value those kind of stats over just, or are you like an old school guy like fairways, greens?
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly look at them all. I mean, you want to know where you're good and where you're bad. I mean, it's obvious from the stats that I have on there that I need to be better inside of 100 yards and on the greens. But, you know, that takes a little bit of time out there. I mean, those greens are different. You know, those greens are firm and quick. Those guys have been on those greens for 30 years. You know, when you're nothing against, you know, Riverbend or Autumn Ridge or Cherry Hill, well, I play, but they're just not the same. Riverbend's close, but, you know, that's why I spend more time out there now, because I need those challenging putts. I need that quickness, you know. But, I mean, man, I'm here to tell you, you know, Calgary was a really good golf course, but the greens were, I mean, you know, when you're 30 feet and putting it across a ridge and having to feed it down to the hole, man, you better have a good idea how that ball, you know, you better be comfortable on the greens and how fast they are. And those greens were fast. So that's another part of it, you know, just getting comfortable out there. Sure. But I certainly would value those stats. Yeah, I would.
For people that play amateur golf or even competitive events like myself, I focus so much when before my tee time. I get there an hour before. I hit balls for 40 minutes. I get warmed up, and then I'm like, I guess I'll go hit putts for 10 minutes. Is something like that right? It's then I'm like, after the round, I'm like, man, I didn't make a putt. You know, I don't understand that. So I'm kind of interested in for amateurs. Is there anything putting wise or short game work that the pros do that's different? Any kind of drills that you do that kind of helps you in that area more than someone like myself who I putt bad and then I complain about it, but I don't practice it.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm very fortunate that I get to train at Apex, and they've got, you know, a putting module on TrackMan that's amazing. I use all the time. But I would recommend a book that I love, which is James Siegman's book called Your Short Game Solution, YOUR, Your Short Game Solution. And he's just a brilliant putting instructor. I take his book with me on the road every time I go, just because I love to just dive in and look at things. But he's got a drill that I love that is a really simple drill, and it's going to sound a little bit silly when I say it, but it's once you start getting into it and doing it, you see the value in it, and you also find it to be much tougher than what it is. But he suggests that you putt to dimes. So if you take a dime and throw it on the floor in your home or on the practice green, and you putt 2.5 foot putts, okay? So how long is, 2.5? It's not far, okay? But when you putt to the dime, he wants you to hear the dime. So there's times that you almost hit the dime. It looks like it goes over it, but you can't hear it. So I've sort of modified it, and I take a tee and stick a tee when I'm outside in the green, so the head's sticking up about like that. So if I hit it, I can see it deflecting, but it's about the size of a dime or a little smaller. And putt 2.5 footers, and go from 4 spots, north, south, east, west, 5 putts. So 20 putts total, and count up how many times you hit your target, the tee or the dime, and hear the dime. And Siegman says, if you can hit 20 out of 25, 4 out of 5 from each spot, you're world class. Now, when I first saw that, I'm like, come on, right. 2.5 feet to a dime, seriously? And the first time I tried it, I missed the first one. I hit the second one, and I missed the third one, and I kind of stood there. I was like, okay, all right, this is not a good start. And I think I hit 15 or 16 the first time. It took me a while to get to 20, but what that does is it trains you on start line. Can I hit it? Can I get it on line where I'm looking, where I want the ball to go? and it just trains you on that. I think that is one of the absolute best drills that you can do. And so what I would suggest to you is maybe not maybe not when you're playing a tournament, but if you go out to practice, do that first. Start in close to the hole and work on that first, and then maybe start varying it up. But if a tournament came along, I would stick. That's the first thing I do. If I get there and I get there an hour ahead of time, I'll go to the green for 10 minutes and I'll putt to a dime or to the tee, and then I'll turn around, I'll go hit golf balls, then I'll come back and hit some short shots, and then I'll finish putting. But another thing too that just comes to mind is, I talk about the difference between pros and amateurs. One of the things I see amateurs do a lot that just drives me nuts is they go to the range on a tournament day, like you're going to play in a golf association event or whatever, and they go out there and start working on their swing. They start like practicing, which just drives me nuts. I'm just like, dude, this is not the day to be practicing. You're coming to the range to warm up.
Right.
Okay. Loosen up, see some balls fly, get a feel for some distances. Don't put a lot of stock. Don't put a lot of, don't pay attention to, don't grade yourself the morning of a tournament. You're there to warm up. Go warm up, go make some putts on the green, go hit a few good short shots, and then get yourself ready to go play. But I see that a lot where guys go out there and you see them out there and they're working on stuff. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, you guys, what are you doing? You got to tee it up for real here, like in 10 minutes. What are you doing?
Right.
So that would be one thing. And the other thing that we always laugh about when I talk about AMs and pros, because I get that question from people a little bit, it seems like, is amateurs talk about score way more than pros ever do, ever. Like scoring makes amateurs nervous sometimes, almost even when someone's playing good. I can't tell how many times when I was back in the golf association where we'd be on the 14th hole and I'd have it maybe 3 or 4 under, and someone would come up to me and go, "Man, are you 4 under?" And I'd be like, "Dude, let's just finish playing and we'll add them up at the end. I'm good, thanks, appreciate it." But they're getting nervous, so they talk about score way too much, too much. Just keep playing. You never hear that in pro golf. You'll never get that.
It's funny. I mean, the better players I've played with, I'll be like, "Dude, you're 4 under," and it's like the 16th hole. I'll be like, I didn't even know. But me, if I get if I'm like 2 under after 4, I'm like, oh my god, what am I gonna do? I gotta hold this together. So that's spot on. That's so true.
It happens. I mean, there's times we laughed about. I'm like, dude, the dude I'm playing with is getting more nervous than me.
Right.
I mean, you're almost calming him down, and I'm the one who's playing it. So yeah, I would say those two things always pop up for me when people say, what about AMs and pros? I'm like, yeah, that's probably the biggest difference. Those two things.
You mentioned distance earlier. Do you feel like there's a distance problem in golf right now?
No. I'm not on that side of things. I know there's plenty of people talking about bifurcation and rolling it back and all that stuff. Listen, it's the same for everybody. I mean, it's the same for everybody. It's like saying, hey, we're going to raise the basket to 11 feet because guys are so athletic in the NBA. I mean, that's never going to happen. So to me, I'm not consumed with it. I don't worry about it. I don't think it hurts the game at all. I think it's all relative. And here's something that happened in the US Open this last year that got totally missed. I mean, totally in the media, if you ask me. And I almost wished I would have had my podcast going or my show going so that I could have talked about it, because no one was talking about this. And I'd love your thought on this as well, Phil. But I think the US Open showed something in the game that is so blatantly obvious for why things are where they are right now and why it's not going to change. And you can bifurcate all you want. It's not going to matter. At the US Open this year, they grew the rough to 5 inches. Okay. And guys obviously drove the golf ball in the rough. And yes, DeChambeau was hitting it astronomical distances. The shots being played out of 5-inch rough at this US Open is the most crazy thing I've ever seen in my life. And that's not because of equipment, and it's not because of the ball. It's because athletes are so strong and so fast and so good that they were hitting golf balls out of 5-inch rough from 180 yards on the green and making birdies. If that doesn't show people that this ain't, I understand the equipment, I get it, I understand the ball. It is the players. You're not going to roll this back. There's no way. They're too committed to being athletes at this point. Forget about it. Let them go. Let them do it. I don't see the problem with it. Tighten up the fairways, grow the roughs. That's what I would tell them to do. Make it a little bit tougher from that approach shot and let them go compete, man. Let them go compete. I don't see the problem with it.
Yeah, I think you got the combination of technology. It's gotten better and better, but yeah, these guys they're just more athletic and they're bigger, stronger. I mean, you look at what Bryson's done over the last year. I mean, he's crazy, but you have to admire it. He's going all in on what he believes in. And I mean, you got to say it's worked. I mean, I've talked about it on this podcast a couple of times that I love the content that he brings and the stuff he says, but the results have been there. And the only thing I'm concerned about with the distance is it feels like has made some courses a little bit obsolete, like St. Andrews. Even in 2015, it was getting kind of obliterated by distance then. So when they play it, next, it's going to be a much different golf course than it used to be. But like you said, there's things that they can do at a lot of golf courses now, and to defend against distance. And I kind of believe it's a skill. I know Matt Fitzpatrick said, he came out against Bryson. He said, distance isn't a skill, but I believe it's a skill. I mean, if you're Rory McIlroy and Dustin Johnson, that is a skill.
I would ask him, and I like Fitzpatrick a lot. I love his game. He's a bit old school dude. But if you gave him the opportunity to hit it 350 or 275 and compete out on the tour, what would you take?
Right.
Don't give me that. Come on, man. You're gonna tell me you wouldn't take 350? Stop it. I mean, give me a break.
Right.
But going back to what you were saying about the courses being obsolete, I agree with that to a point. And I use Marion as an example. When Justin Rose in 2015 won at Marion, it was the shortest U.S. Open they'd played in however many years it was. It was 6,700 yards. Yeah. They grew the rough to 4 or 5 inches. They tightened the fairways. They firmed the greens, and one guy was under par. Yeah. I mean, and even DeChambeau, even though he won the U.S. Open and he decimated, in a way that field, he was the only guy under par. Right. No one else was under par. No one. I mean, if he has an average week and he's back towards par, we don't even have the conversation, Sure. And what he's doing is insane. The tracers on his golf ball, Phil, are, I mean, dude, he's got a 7.5-degree driver. He's rolling down to 5.5. I mean, if you gave me a perfect shaft, had it fit for me at a 5.5, I would hit half the fairways I hit right now. The control with that driver is just not there. He's just striping it. It's unreal. It's unreal how good it is. I got to give some props to my man Stiller too, by the way, because we talked at the beginning of the year, and this is what he said to me, Phil. You'll love this. He said he's going to win 10 times. He's going to win everything with his new system. I said, "Get whatever." I said, "Dude, he might get a couple wins. It's no way is this going to work." That's what I said. Right. And I stand correct. I'm looking right at it right now. Stiller, I was wrong. Okay, you were right. I was wrong. He's unreal. You got to appreciate the all in he's got right now. He's all in.
Yeah. I mean, he putted great at the U.S. Open. That obviously was a huge help. But I mean, it feels like the Masters is imminent if he putts decent. I know he didn't play great in November, but the distances that he's hitting there is going to be a huge help. And I just feel like he kind of says this himself. He kind of makes it like a math problem, and that's what he's doing. I mean, he's eliminating. You talked about eliminating some of the field or certain guys you got to beat. I mean, he's only got to beat a few guys, and he's going to get his share. I mean, that's for sure.
I think if I was teaching him or working with him right now, the one thing I think I would change with him has nothing to do with his golf swing, but I think he would, having the one length clubs still, which he's still playing, I think I would kind of graduate from the 7-iron down into my wedges. I think getting a little shorter wedge length for him would behoove him and would make him a better wedge player.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not all in on that. That's the one part of it where I'm like, a 7-iron length and a 56 or 60-degree wedge. I don't know, man.
It's definitely the weakest
he's
part
certainly
of the
making
game.
it work. He's certainly making it work, but it seems to me that would be the way he'd win Augusta. To me, would be a little more control with the wedges. Maybe take a few of those wedges and shorten them down just to get a little bit better touch, because I think that's what he was missing this last year, in my opinion.
I texted my brother-in-law, who's become a kind of a bigger golfer in the last couple of years. I said, this is the second craziest thing he's done after the side saddle putting. And I sent him a picture, and he's like, what was that? I said, oh yeah, he tried side saddle putting when he came on tour because he wasn't making any putts. So I said, this is who he is. He's going to keep experimenting. 200 plus, mile an hour ball speed right now. I mean, it's insanity, but He's sticking
And
to
the
who he
compass. Don't
is.
forget the compass.
The compass.
Don't
Yeah,
forget the
we got that
compass.
too.
You had the compass too.
Oh my gosh. One of the last questions I want to ask you. So when I get on a course like Autumn Ridge is just a place that I feel comfortable. I cannot play there for a year, and I get there and I just feel at home. And that's a course I always play well. Is there a certain course, either locally or anywhere that you've played that you get the good feels no matter what your form is coming into there?
Yeah. Well, my home has always been Riverbend Golf Club. I mean, that's where I grew up playing. We were strapping clubs to our back and riding our bikes over there through the neighborhoods. I grew up in Old Brook Farm. I'm a Northeast kid. I'm a Jefferson Patriot and Northrop Bruin and St. Joe Central Elementary School. So that's my hood. That's my hood. Shove Park and Riverbend. Yep. Riverbend is just such a special place to me, man. I don't know how any golf ground could be more sacred to me than that place. I'm not saying it's the greatest golf course that's ever existed. It's awfully nice. It's in great shape. Tommy Bodden, hats off to you for what you've done out there, and Roger, his superintendent. Yep. Those guys have done great, but I don't know how I could ever feel about anything quite like that. Now, I will tell you, and this is a recent occurrence too, is I never thought there'd be a member of my family who would like Riverbend as much as me, but Tommy Bodden has been kind enough to let me walk my dog out there, our year-and-a-half-old black-mouthed cur, and his name's Bucky, and he loves running free on that golf course as much as I love playing it. So I've been out there all winter with him, running him around that place, and it's so he may even get a few rounds of golf this summer with us, maybe even when it's nice, but I would have to say Riverbend cool. Probably. I mean, yeah.
I'm pretty confident that Bucky could probably make a few more putts than I can. Those greens get me in the peak season. Man, those are tough. Listen, Scott, we've gone a little long. I appreciate the time here. Really excited to have you on and talk about kind of where you've been, what your 2021 is going to look like. Man, we'd love to have you back on the podcast at some point when it fits your schedule.
Anytime, but I'd love to get on here with Strasser and mix it up over what we think with golf. I'm a big, huge Johnny Strasser fan. I love that golf swing. I'm gonna say it right now. Johnny's gonna get himself a city here the next couple of years. I'm making that prediction right now. I'm throwing the gauntlet down to him. It's time. It's time for him to get one.
Yep. I'm sure he'll take that as a challenge. He's been so close.
Yep. He's a great player. Yeah. He's a great player.
All right. Well, Scott, best of luck. A couple weeks here in Tucson. We'll all be following you for sure. And like I said, we'll have you back on when it fits your schedule, man.
Man, I hope I have something for you guys to follow in Tucson. That would be awesome. And thank you for having me on your show. I love your show, buddy. Good job. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate it. Everyone listening, when you can to this podcast, check it out on YouTube. We got a YouTube channel that we're going to get going. And listen, Scott, good luck. And everyone, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.